Hey folks, April 3rd, 2019. This is going to be somewhat of a continuation of the previous video, but you can watch that after this one or not at all. But I just wanted to tell you that some of this, what I'll talk about, may briefly mention some things that I spoke with earlier in regards to the solar cycle and the number 24 being the 24th solar cycle, and the possibility that they have always known that at the end of the 24th solar cycle, ice age occurs. That's why they started solar cycle 1 after the Maunder minimum, the little ice age. So anyways, and that's and what I went over on the previous video was also the temperature scales didn't come about, supposedly having a formalized scale until just 10 years or so after the little ice age, which was the Celsius was in 1743 and Fahrenheit in 1724, whereas the Maunder minimum ended 1715. So what I'm going to get into this time is really telescopes and ability for people to actually start witnessing the solar cycles themselves, or the sunspot count. Well, if you can count the spots on the sun, then you can determine the cycles, and ultimately, if you're able to know the cycles and you know at the end of the 24th cycle that it's going to get the climate's going to change, then you'll also be able to essentially rule the world if other people don't know that it's going to change and you've got the heads up. So you're able to stockpile and you're able to prepare. So it would be the ultimate military decision to not let others know what is coming about. But now I'm beginning to think it may be a little too obvious and everybody already knows, or at least all the governments said, no. Certainly it wouldn't be wise for all the populace to know, but maybe I'm wrong, and maybe what I'm saying can be debunked, and I'm definitely open for people to debate and talk about it. But as of yet, I haven't heard anyone go against anything that I'm putting up. So if we look at let's see, the first time that it said that people could see sunspots, well, that brings us to 1700. BC. Well, I hope you can see this better. I know my last presentation, the chart was all washed out with too much brightness, but it said that we could see sunspots all the way dating back to 1700 BC, which was the Qing dynasty, C-H-I-N-G, and dynasty. And that lasted from 1700 BC to 1027 BC. And we're told that they kept very detailed records of the sunspots, and so did the Han dynasty, Han, H-A-N dynasty. But this one was a little more recent, and that was at 200 BC through 280. They had a 2-year span. 400-year span. Anyways, so I don't know how in the world anybody can check sunspots without a telescope. I mean, we're saying that Galileo didn't observe the first sunspot. Okay, Galileo. Misspelling probably. It was 1611. All right, so 1611 was about the time we started having the first workable telescopes for sunspot viewing. And it's just what history says, and it's not me. I don't necessarily believe it. I think telescopes went back further, of some sort, because there's just no way you can observe sunspots without some sort of lensing. And even with my telescope here, it's a Astromaster 70 Celestron. It's not very good, but you know, it gets the job done. I mean, I'm sure it's considerably better than what people had hundreds of years ago. But it wasn't, it's still, I still have yet to find a sunspot with this thing. At least the ones of recent, which I'm told are very small, and we haven't had a decent sunspot in ages. Which is what made my first video, which made me make my first video to show what was going on with NASA showing a solar cycle of what looked like a flat line for the entire foreseeable future. Their chart went from the beginning of solar cycle 24 all the way to 2023, I believe, and it was just totally flatlined. And never has it flatlined in that long of time, not since the Little Ice Age, the Maunder Minimum. So, okay, so before I go much further, I should probably mention the things I've got going on in the background. This is a EMF 390. It basically alarms at high EMFs, EFs, or RFs. I have it set to alarm at a pretty high number, so it doesn't really go off too much. This is a Radix 1 Geiger counter, and I've got it set to go off at 0.20, but the number on it, it removes the decimal, so it actually says 20 or whatever, and it'll just do like a single beep when it's rising up. So it's a pretty cool little thing. But I also have a GMC 320 and a couple of these GMC 600 plus Geiger counters, which now this is because of something I mentioned before. That's another one over there on the side, and that's also a radon detector, an MR107 Radix radon detector. I have all these detectors because, like I mentioned on my first video, and I know this sounds ridiculous, this is why people don't talk about it, but gamma waves are said to only occur inside your head and can only be detected within maybe a centimeter, you know, outside of your skull by the electrodes, and they typically occur during certain thoughts, or aha moments, I've heard it called, you know, where you figure something out and it's aha, and then, you know, your brain will light up on these little detectors with the gamma wave, which are supposedly very different than a gamma ray. But anyways, what I've discovered is that these Geiger counters, or at least the GMC 600 plus Geiger counters, and even this Radix 1 or the GMC 320, so they're different manufacturers and they're different types. They actually spike a little bit during these moments, and this is why, you know, I've got them in the background. This is just kind of like a test and a history of of how it affects me, and I figure if enough people know about it and other people step forward and show that it happens to them as well, and then maybe, what's capable, what happens is more public knowledge, and maybe we can build on it. I'm certain that there's quite a bit of professionals and people that know, that this happens, but the general public, like me, I just figured it out in a really weird way, because I just had mine on, and I started with just this real cheapy one, the Radix 1, which I can hardly recommend because they break so easy. This terrible design things, everything falls apart. I even have a zip tie to keep the thing together. But I started with just one of these things, and I just had left it on, and I found when I had this nightmare that it really wasn't a big, it was something interesting. Well, like a stabbing or something. This thing was just beeping, just beep, 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 beep. And when I woke up, I was like, oh, that's weird. It's just a coincidence. But later on that day, I was watching a suspense movie, and when somebody, something suspenseful or crazy happened, it was beeping again. And I noticed that it seemed to beep, a lot when I was outside, and I heard a plane overhead. I didn't even always have to see it. I just, outside I hear it, and, sometimes I'd look up and see it, and this thing would beep. But usually it'd just be a single beep for that. But anyways, I started looking more into it, and I was thinking, well, maybe it's some somatic cortex thing, a sound happens, and my brain just is subconsciously, sending a signal. I didn't really know. I feel like I was grasping, and maybe it was just coincidence. I said it was coincidence enough times that eventually I got more Geiger counters of different types to see. And even when I'm doing these presentations, when I'm trying to describe and I'm thinking of the right way to explain myself, it alarms too. And that doesn't just go with the presentation, it's normal everyday life. I keep these on like all the time. In my house, but just to see, because I'm still trying to convince myself it doesn't have, it's just a coincidence, but I can't, because it proves me wrong time and time again that this thing is literally going off during times of I don't know if it's when a memory is made. Brains are very complicated, but it's like tickling yourself. You can't just make it happen. I can't just think it and make it happen. But in a way I can, because if I have enough enthusiasm about something and I just figure something out, I can kind of make it happen more often than if I was just sitting there, doing nothing or not stimulating my brain in any way. But I'm just leaving them on, and like I always say, nullius in verba, in the words of no one, see for yourself. Get your own Geiger counters. Maybe it'll work for you, maybe not. I don't know. I don't know how often this works for people. But there's no magic trick involved. It just happens. And maybe there's some sort of way it's in our distant past. It was a way of communicating. I don't know, either a knowledge or danger. Maybe something would happen. Like sometimes if a floor creaks and I'm downstairs in the basement, I hear like a creaky noise. These things will set off, and that's one of the things I initially thought was a somatic cortex. That's when your brain hears a sound and lights up, to do something. But you'll see. You get one. I don't care, whatever manufacturer. What you have to do is you set it slightly above background level, like 0.20. If your background is 0.17 or 16, you set it at about 3 or 4 points above it. the point 20 or 0.21, and you'll see for yourself. Sometimes it is just a background spike, and you've got to clear away, understand that there will be noise within the system. Say there's a gamma burst or something, and then they'll all go off or whatever. Sometimes it's super high and you'll be obvious it wasn't something you did. I don't know. One time it did go super high for me, and it wasn't super obvious that it wasn't me, because I just got killed in a game. I was playing a game, just some silly PS4 game, and I got ambushed in a way that I never got ambushed before. I'm really good at it, but they ambushed me, and all of a sudden this thing went to like 3. I don't know. It was like at least 1,000 clicks per minute. It was just going nuts. But that hasn't repeated too often, so I attribute that to a coincidence. But these other things where it won't go off all day, and then I'll come in and I see that it hasn't went over a certain clicks per minute rate, and it shows a maximum, and I'll come in and all of a sudden it'll spike, especially if I'm discussing something with someone. If it's something I have to think through, or a debate, it cranks up. But anyways, I didn't go through that very detailed on that first presentation, so I figured I'd go ahead and say it in this one, and we'll just let it play through. I would believe whatever you want, but that's it. I mean, I have coincidences all the time. I don't say it's some kind of magic thing that's happening to me, make me feel some kind of special. Believe me, it's a curse. I can't think of anything that could, good could come of it. Usually any kind of, if it was a mutation, I doubt it is. I think everybody probably has it to some degree, but any mutation is usually a very bad thing. At least so I've been told. But yeah, I mean, and as far as things that I just attribute as coincidence, that maybe somebody else might see something as a sign. Well, just the other day I was cutting down trees, and just not big trees, just a few inches in diameter or so in my backyard, clearing out the brush, and I came up with this one. And I was like, well, that kind of looks like a clown face. That's kind of funny. I figured I'd give you guys a picture of it. The stump actually looks even better than this. And I don't even think this is coming out very well in this video, but I'll see if I can insert a picture of the stump. And the stump was just happened to be, well, the tree. Well, now it's a stump, but it was in a Civil War ditch. My backyard was. So as we know, history just seems so ridiculous with all the things that we're told that don't add up. And then we go and we look at these YouTube videos, and there's so many of them that say all this clickbait stuff that makes it look like somebody has an answer, and then you've got somebody who has tries to debunk it, and both sound somewhat realistic. But I've seen enough of that stuff, and that's why I do my own research, and that's why I created my own channel. And anybody can look up this stuff, and they really need to. They need it. I would suggest to watch my videos and take notes. Write it down and see if you can go a little bit further. Or please debate me. Just tell me where I may be wrong, and I'll correct it. I'm trying to learn. I'm not looking just for an echo chamber, but if we've got more people that are looking into this stuff and can add to what I say, let's go for it. The whole point of this particular video was to discuss how they absolutely had to have some sort of lens in order to see sunspots in these ancient years, from 1700 BC to 1027 BC, and obviously Galileo, we all are told he did have a telescope and was able to see them in 1611. But was it possible that it's called apparently a Pharaohs of Alexandria was supposed to be some sort of a lighthouse, but some people have speculated that that I don't know, maybe I'll just show it. This is what I was seeing. Pharaohs of Alexandria could have possibly been a telescope or a watchtower somehow, or maybe they had a separate lensing mechanism in there to actually see it, to see sunspots, to keep the solar cycle numbers. Perhaps when people went to the oracle to ask whether or not it was time for war, maybe they were just looking for a calendar to see if the 24th solar cycle was at the end, and that they should prepare for war, because that would be inevitable if there was always a change of climate, a drastic change that they needed to prepare for. What we have is a lot of obfuscation, and that's another word that people need to know. Common people, most people have seen, you say that and you lose them. I don't want to lose anybody for this simple word. This is a very important word here, because that means when you make something complicated, so complicated on purpose that other people can't figure out what the original meaning is. And you could do that by, say for instance, if you don't want people to know what I'm putting out, then you would put my video at the bottom, and then everybody that's got garbage stuff but sounds legitimate, but as long as it's not the truth, they'll put theirs up, and you'll get a lot higher viewership. And even me saying that is going to help them, because more people will do that. They'll say, wow, I want to make more money, so I'm going to put out the garbage and I'm going to get higher viewership. And so there's really no winning, but I figure I'm just going to catalog what I know, and whether or not anybody actually sees this or subscribes, that's up to you. But I just really want to make people think about what's being told out there. The Great Pyramid is going to be another one that I'll talk about soon, and believe me, it's a doozy. I got some good ones on it. It's a real doozy. But I don't want this to get too long, and maybe it already has. I'll insert some things I found with the Asteroid app I spoke about previously, when I mentioned that it looked like we were going into an asteroid field with a large surplus heading our way. Well, I noticed that a couple of weeks after I said that, there's been a number of meteors striking. One went over Georgia and into Florida, or it made a fireball. Maybe it didn't actually strike the Earth. It may have just blew up in the atmosphere, but it was a big green fireball that quite a bit of people saw. You could look it up. I think it was March 30th that it actually happened. But I noticed on that app, I wanted to get to that point, on the Asteroid Alert app, that when you fast forward into the future, there's one asteroid that's not named. Like all the other asteroids on their whole app have a name, but one that happens, and I'm almost certain that it is just a joke or a marketing scheme by the programmer to have that asteroid come super close to Earth on a particular day, on February the 22nd of 2022, on a Tuesday, a real Tuesday, 2/22/22, and it's the only one that's on our app that's not marked. Every other green dot was a mark. And there we go. We've got, my alarms going off as I was thinking through that. But I think that's going to be all for now. And I don't know if I'll insert any more charts at the end of this one like I did the last one. But I do want to say that every time that I've looked on the solar sun cycle progression chart that's provided by the NOAA, the NOAA, they provide this chart every month, and every time I've looked, it's been on the first Monday of every month. But this Monday, it wasn't. They haven't updated it yet, so I can't really provide anything new with that. I was wanting to say, well, look, it's still flatlining. Or look, it went up, but no, they're not. They haven't updated it. I don't know when they will, or if. Surely they will sometime this month. Maybe as soon as I post this video, it will go up. But every other month, they've been doing it on the first Monday. In January, it was the first Monday. February is the first Monday. March was the first Monday. But I don't know. I guess that's it. I hope you guys, liked the video. Sorry if didn't go into more numbers or whatever you guys might like, like I did last time. Just let me know, if you want to see anything particular, if you want to, debate any of these points, or if you want to speak about the Geiger counters more, I can give more detail. But I don't want to have too much blah blah blah. I see that way too many videos. Just get to the point, man. All right, so have a good day.